Hey guys, it's Mrs. Rewa, and we are having music class today as realistically as I can bring it to you. I know we can't be together, but I'm going to be teaching it out of my home studio, and I have my Beethoven here to assist me, and this is our first online music class from my house. So here it goes. I'm going to turn this over. And today we are going to be learning about a new composer. You guys know that last month we worked on Beethoven. We spent a lot of time listening to his work, a lot of time talking about the classical music era, and prior to Beethoven and some of the classical composers, we studied the Baroque era. So first I just want to go over the dates with you very quickly so that you remember what they are. Remember that during the Baroque era, we're talking about roughly 1600 to 1750. And then the classical era came after that. And during the classical era, we're talking about roughly 1750 to 1830. And now we're going to be talking about a new era that's called the Romantic era. And the Romantic era is roughly from about 1815 to 1910. Now notice that the classical era ends around 1830 and the Romantic era starts around 1815. That means that these two eras actually overlap. A lot was going on in music during that time, which we're going to talk about. But for right now, you just need to know that roughly the Romantic era starts about 1815 and it goes on to 1910. So I want to start with a new composer. And the composer that I want to introduce you all to is Chopin. Here's what he looks like. And there are some things I want you to know about him. Number one, he's the first composer from Poland that we've studied. So I'm going to put his name up here. I'm just going to put his last name, Chopin. And you need to know that he is a Polish Romantic composer. What does that mean, and how is a Romantic composer different from a classical or a Baroque composer? Well, let's review for just a minute that during the Baroque period, there was a lot of what we call counterpoint, two different melodies going on at the same time. So there were pieces that were inventions and fugues, and we talked about Johann Sebastian Bach and how we could hear more than one melody happening at a time. Lots of ornamentation, lots of trills and turns, right? Those are characteristics of the Baroque era. Classical era was a little bit different. Classical era was based a lot on symmetry. And we heard emotion, such as in Beethoven's piece, but there was also a lot of symmetry and balance involved in the classical era. But the Romantic era, there was a lot more freedom happening in music during this time. And you're going to hear some of that emotion more than you ever really have heard in previous pieces that we've studied. I want to read to you just a little bit about the Romantic period. Before the Romantic period, music was composed to be pleasing to the mind. Romantic composers felt that music should affect the emotions and feelings. The composer would express intimate feelings of joy, sorrow, peacefulness, or excitement, and listeners would feel the emotions that the composer was trying to express. Romantic composers wanted to express themselves in individual ways. Chopin was certainly different from many of the composers of his day, and he chose to create his own methods for making music rather than following others. Again, we're talking about a lot more freedom in the Romantic era. So let's take a look at Chopin a minute. And here's what he looks like. We no longer see the wigs of the Baroque era, correct? And we want to know about him a little bit as far as the dates go. He was born in 1810, so you can put that in your notes. I'm actually going to hold this down. And he died in 1849. Mathematicians do the math. He did not have a very long life. His main instrument that he played was piano. And he began playing in public when he was only 8 years old, you guys. So from a very early age, he did have a musical talent. He's not described as a musical prodigy as Mozart was, but he was very musical from an early age. So at the age of 8, he started playing publicly. And believe it or not, the first piece that he ever wrote, the first piece that was published, is a piece that we're going to listen to. It's called Polonaise in G minor. I'm going to put it, let's do it right here, pieces. Make sure you get the spelling right. Polonaise in G minor, correct? Yes. And you guys, he was 7 years old when he wrote this and when it was first published at the Warsaw Conservatory of Music. So we should know he studied at the Warsaw Conservatory of Music. Let's listen to it for just a second. I have a recording of it. And you can listen to it as well. I'll put a listening link on the website. But I want you to know just a few more things about him today. His father was a teacher, and his mother was from Poland, but his father was actually from France. And Frédéric Chopin grew up in a cultured and very educated family. Some of the composers we've studied had parents that did not have money. They had to be sent away with relatives to study music, but that was not the case with Chopin. His parents were very highly educated. It says here when he was 6, he began studying the piano, and he played his first concerto in public at the age of 8, as I said before. While still young, he performed in many German cities. He developed a passionate love for Poland, even though he lived most of his adult life in Paris, France. When he left Poland, he took with him a goblet filled with the soil of his beloved native land. In 1817, when Chopin was 7, his first work, Polonaise in G minor, that we're listening to right now, was published. He attended the Warsaw Conservatory of Music, and in 1829, he began a concert tour to London by way of Vienna, Molich, and Paris. He was so successful in Paris that he did not wind up going to London. So the few things that I want you to know about him, other than his name, that he was a Polish Romantic composer, the dates that he lived, that he played piano, and that he studied at the Warsaw Conservatory of Music, is that he had very highly educated parents, so parents, highly educated. And this piece right here, the Polonaise in G minor that we're listening to, I want you to know that that was written and published at the age of 8. So So I do think this is a very beautiful piece of music, but my favorite Chopin piece was one that I learned in college, and it is a Chopin nocturne. Nocturne means night music. I'm going to play just a little bit of it for you while you finish getting these notes. And I'm going to put Chopin's picture right next to Beethoven here, and I invite you to listen. To get too long, but I will play more of this piece for you and maybe some other Chopin pieces as we study Chopin more. But for now, I encourage you to look up his name on YouTube and listen to some of the beautiful music that he wrote for us during the Romantic period of music. And I ask you to please take the quiz that goes along with this lesson. You can find that under assignments. That will show me that you have listened and that you have the notes. And that's my way of grading for the semester too, so that you take the quizzes. So guys, have an awesome day, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.